me to just be me. Voila. It worked so far. Thank you, Charlene, and everyone for being here. I know this is a terrifically busy weekend, and we're all doing what we need to do, being where we need to be. For over 16 years, I have served as a researcher with the early Edgewood-Candler Park BiRacial History Project here in Candler Park, where we live and our lives on former Muskogee Creek land. My education has deepened through a collaborative connection with the 148-year-old Black church organized on this side of the railroad tracks in 1874, the Antioch East Baptist Church and its descendant families. My ongoing work to come to terms with their palpable history has compelled this effort to exercise into words an emotional force field lodged in my body, braiding some spirit with these resilient people. The topography I walk each day on this land, the physicality of the history, and the generational integrity of the African American Rose Hill community that strived on the Candler Park hillside across the street from 1892 to 1942. The exorcism has come out in this poem that I was compelled to put to paper for MLK Day in January. I have read it here once before, and it feels appropriate again today. 13 decades deep, the Rose Hill community, 1892 to 1942. The earth here hums of history, memory, holds ripe witness to those souls who lived upon this place. Vibrations run deep beneath the excised hillside, flattened out to one-dimensional ball fields, playscapes for forgetting those determined acts of cruelty, to dismiss, to disappear the pioneers, the people, to erase again all trace of vibrant Black life, and turn the page to the masters of the moment's new game. Yet still today, the dirt talks back. 13 decades deep, time's phantom limb pulses as the roots of Rose Hill speak. Who will listen? How to pay to do repair to the basso profundo echoes beneath our feet, to such resilient community gamefully displaced, to the forebears, the elders, the brilliant lineage among us still. Thank you. The power of poetry to exorcise energy that is too big for our individual selves to contain. I'm grateful for the words as a vehicle. So, it's a fraught history, but one people can be and need to be enriched by. 200 years ago in 1822, DeKalb County was carved out of Muskogee Creek territory that was controversially ceded to Georgia in the 1821 Treaty of Indian Springs. 100 years ago, in 1922, Asa Candler and the Edgewood Realty Company sold 54 acres for $10 to the city of Atlanta to create a public park. Contingent upon the realty company's prior removal of all dwellings and their black residents, the land was reconfigured into the segregated Candler Park golf course and later the pool, playground, and tennis court areas across the street. In a parallel and coexistent reality, beginning 13 decades ago, between 1892 and 1942, thriving 100 years ago, there existed so close by independently owned African American properties and homesteads. The enclave comprised the Rose Hill community, located in the area of today's Candler Park ball fields, across the street from this African American hand-built sanctuary we occupy today. In 1942, the city of Atlanta took over the Rose Hill properties to expand the public park for whites only, displace the black homeowners and residents, had the structures demolished, and leveled the hillside into the flat ball fields. It was not until 1963 that the park was desegregated. In this year of the Candler Park Centennial, it is also the centennial of this old stone church. We want to raise up in remembrance the concurrent African American Rose Hill community. In collaborative fellowship, the Antioch East Baptist Church, builders of this sanctuary, the BiRacial History Project, and the First Existentialist Congregation join with our neighborhood church, Candler Park Conservancy, Candler Park Neighborhood Organization, and the Edgewood Solidarity Group to welcome Edgewood and Candler Park neighbors and History Project friends to join with us on Saturday, October 22nd, to acknowledge and commemorate the historic presence of this African American church and families who co-created this community as far back as the 1870s. I'd like to share some words regarding our Rose Hill commemorative event that is truly a collaboration with the Antioch East Baptist Church. Our point person at Antioch is Brother David Thurman, who has always been supportive of the history work that we have done together. And he, in presenting our project to the Antioch East Conference Board, he said these words: "We are asking our church body to come out and immerse themselves in our church history, as it is a wonderful history and one that indeed involved overcoming many obstacles to where we are today. The sacrifices of many of our ancestral members and the work of the present Candler Park and Edgewood residents to preserve our history make this an event well worth our time. We should always know and preserve our history. We will always be a proud product of the Edgewood and early Candler Park communities, no matter where our sanctuary is presently located." So the Antioch East was in this building until 1950. They moved south of the tracks to modern Edgewood and were there on Hardy Street until 2019, when by choice they sold their 3.2 acres for a goodly sum and moved to a 10-acre site with a complex that was already built and served its elders well, being all on one level in Ellenwood, Georgia. And in that process, Antioch East bequeathed to us here to their old stone church, the 4 stained glass windows that are here with us since the summer of 2019. And that has closed an emotional and spiritual circle and keeps us in fellowship for the next 100 years of this building's standing. One more. Okay. So, the Rose Hill Community Commemorative event is coming up in 2 weekends. On Saturday, October 22nd, Antioch East, our partners, many of whom we've mentioned already, and our close neighbors and friends. We're keeping this as an intimate event, reconnecting with folks who have participated with us over these 16 years of the BiRacial History Project. And we're mindful that we're just a couple of weeks away from a contentious election. And in these complicated times, we've elected to approach this as more of an intimate event amongst friends. So we're not doing a broad cast of the net or publicity beyond our local presence. And that is to honor and protect the elders and the work that we've been doing together. We will have some representation from the AJC coming to the event, and we're hoping there'll be some things written after the actual event to share how extraordinary we hope this event will be, and to present it as an opportunity for other, and there are many other neighborhoods where displacement has happened locally, and that those neighborhoods can use some of the resources we have used to dig deeper into the story and raise that up in collaboration and coalition. So we're hoping that there will be ripples after we have a safe event. So activities on Saturday, October 22nd, will include a 9 o'clock in the morning tee-off at the golf clubhouse, a commemorative event in memory of Deacon James Smith and Sister Margaret Lattimore, 2 Antioch East golfers of renown, both of whom have played the course here. And Margaret grew up in this church and was an excellent golfer. And until the course was desegregated, she told us she would stand on the front steps and watch the golfers. And then in the late 50s, early 60s, when the golf courses were desegregated, she was able to play here as well. Assistance is most welcome by volunteers to help us that morning with the 8:30 a.m. till noon setup of historic exhibits on the ball field, as your time allows. We will also need help at the end of the day, around 4:30, to dismantle the exhibits. That's on Saturday. Also on Saturday, there'll be a formal program inside the Stone Church between 1 and 2. It'll feature Antioch East elders' remembrances, some acoustic music from the 1920s, and an introduction to the Rose Hill community experience on the ball fields. Masks will be required for all indoor events. Thank you, Larry. Also on that Saturday, after the event in the Stone Church from 2 to 4:30, the Rose Hill Community Interactive Educational Exhibits will be on the ball field across the street and will offer opportunities to learn about the residents who lived in those African-American-owned homesteads. There'll be opportunities to share memories and stories and to meet some of the descendants of the Rose Hill community. Please consider today and after today signing up to volunteer with us We'll be asking for folks the day before on Friday, October 21st, where we'll be setting up things in the sanctuary, both in the kitchen. We'll be feeding the workers on the ball field and the golfers, and that'll be coming out of our kitchen. And also preparing for the formal event beginning at 1 o'clock. So there are a number of tasks that are listed in the back of the room on the flip chart. Things on Friday, things on Saturday. If you can look at those, and if there are any that you would like to help us with, there are 2 sign-up sheets right next to the flip chart. If you could indicate your name, the task, which time frame you'd be available. On Friday, the sanctuary will be open from 10 to 1, and then from 2 to 5 for different tasks. And then on Saturday, we'll need folks in the morning to help with setup and during the formal event. So there are tasks that are specified. And if you will look at those and consider how you might be able to participate with us, we need everyone's cooperation if you're able and available to help make this the meaningful event for ourselves and for our guests. So, are there any questions about the history or the event on the 22nd, or help with setup on the 21st? Yes. Is this written down anywhere? Thank you. I needed that cue. Yes. On the back table, there are handouts. Antioch East created 2 flyers, one about the golf event, and on the other side it lists the Rose Hill events, and that's listed by time, so please help yourself with that. And then recently, just come out in the October Candler Park Messenger, I made a copy of the article that we've run, which does, again, enumerate the activities and our request for volunteers, but it's also got these great photographs of Antioch golfers, a view of our model, which I'll talk about in a minute, which is a model of the Rose Hill community as it was depicted in 1924 on a Sanborn fire insurance map with quite a bit of detail, and based on a 1928 official City of Atlanta map that actually shows the contour, the topography of the hillside before it was carved away. So there's a 3-dimensional kind of material way to connect with that neighborhood that was displaced by the city in 1942. There's also a photo on here from an event that many of us participated in 2011 when the Candler Park Neighborhood Organization presented a commemorative plaque to Antioch East. We had a picnic in the park in May of 2011 and invited the neighborhood and First E and Antioch and friends. And the neighborhood organization presented to Antioch East this proclamation of welcome return to Antioch's ancestral neighborhood of 1874 through 1950, which were the years that Antioch was in the neighborhood and subsequently in the building. So the display over here is focused on the Rose Hill event and the community. There's a version of our legacy marker that is formally on the corner of McClendon and Candler Park Drive, and there's a repro of it there, which is a good summary of that history. Again, the model, which was created by a dear friend, artist, educator, creator, Randy Taylor, who some of you may know, this was quite a task. And we commissioned him, and he donated his services. It's extraordinary. This is quite an accomplishment, and the two maps are there above it to show what it's based on. And there's some other history that's on the bench there that may interest you. So there were any other questions, please? Yes, Linda. Thank you, Linda. Thank you. Thank you, everyone. So many of you over these 16 years have supported and contributed to what we've done and to building this healing bridge with Antioch and to our own personal, deeper understanding of these complicated dynamics that are continue to show themselves in the world today. And for us to have the courage to dig deeper and build these bridges for repair is what needs to happen. And I also want to thank a number of Antioch folks, First E folks, who have stepped up and helped us to write the narratives about the history of each of the different homesteads in the Rose Hill community. So thank you. And we've other neighbors who have stepped up as well. And we're looking forward to more of your energy to help make this a strong presence. Charlene? Okay, so I should try to answer Linda's question first, which I'm sorry, I'm tangent. Linda asked about what was the city's mechanisms for displacement and who was paid and how were they paid. It's not easy to find that information, but we and others who have helped us and done research that helped us start our trajectory have found that there were some families that did sell to the city for what may have been a reasonable price at the time. There were other families who, while they had originally purchased the land, built their houses free and clear, had gone into mortgage situations, and the city and the banks did their thing. There was one family we know of, Thomas Jack, wait. It's not Thomas Savage. I did this last night because I get these families confused sometimes, so you have to give me a senior moment for a second here. I have to see it in my mind. One of the families that had been there for 3 generations held out as the last family, and the city's mechanism was they took over the homestead for $16.95 of unpaid back taxes. So, the city condemned the houses as health nuisances. The city used every mechanism that it could, and we have evidence from a 1923 Atlanta Journal article that as early as in 1922, the park around Rose Hill was created. In January of 1923, there was this lavish article about the park that was going to be created, this world-class park with all kinds of amenities, and there was a map that showed the amphitheater and the golf course and the tennis courts and a swimming pool, and right over the footprints which they showed of the Rose Hill homes, they had a horticulture center. So as early as 1923, they were already in their minds taking that land and putting it to another use. So it took them till 1942 to, make that happen. But it had been part of the behind-the-scenes plan for 20 years already. Yeah. Mary.
I was wondering, I know you talked to some of us about the interactive educational exhibits, and I'm just kind of wondering if some of the communities in, like with Antioch East, are interested in helping out with the, with the interactive exhibits.
Yes, they're older youth, and I'm not exactly sure what that means, but there's an effort at Antioch. Antioch's really stepped up in so many ways. They're taking the summaries that a number of you have helped with and the research homestead by homestead, and the young people are going to be docents as well to help present that. We will have, inside each of the footprints, there'll be an information table, and we're asking for tablecloths it'll be set up on card tables, but we're asking for some nice cloth tablecloths out there. We need 7 more. And then there'll be, also inside the footprints, there'll be a dining table that's set up so that after the event here, between 1 and 2, and a little intro to what's on the ball field, people will be invited to go down into the park and experience, walk the ball field, look at the exhibits that are there, and probably around a little before 3 o'clock, there will be a meal, box lunches, that folks can sit down in the footprints and have a meal together. The way we envision it now is the docents will read those narratives while folks are sitting at the table, and then during the meal, there can be discussion about what they've heard, hopefully some memories or remembrances that the docent can then jot down, take down any of the additional information, and there can be conversation about what folks are experiencing that day. So I did not answer yet the question about the sequence. I think, and it's on the chart there, I think that we're asking, since we've got the formal program here from 1 to 2, that the docents be on the field probably from 2 to 4 or 4:30. And we still have 2 weeks, folks. So we'll figure out the assignments so please don't hesitate to step up, even if it's not totally clear exactly what will be happening, because leave me your best contact information and we will clarify the details as we get closer to it. Joe. There were several enclaves. Hooper Street, and I think some of that is on the green boards there. But Hooper Street was all African American families, and this was hundreds of folks, family members, from 1882 to the early 1980s. That was the longest black enclave in the neighborhood. There were black homes on this block north of the Stone Church, a few even into the 1980s. There were black homes on the south side of, and these were black-owned homes, on the south side of the Mary Lynn School. And there were renters elsewhere. And on the area where the golf course is, there were black families who were renting from the Edgewood Realty Company. And in 1922, I think I stated, as part of the arrangement for the realty company to sell for $10 56 acres to the city required the realty company to remove the residents and remove the structures. Those were rental circumstances, but we have names of families who, with unspecified addresses, who were not Rose Hill, but somewhere on that side of the road. So we assume they were renters on the Edgewood Realty properties. Libby?
I was wondering where the name Rose Hill came from.
During that time, we're pretty familiar with this area. Atlanta is on the is a hilly 1,000-foot elevation up and down from there. It's a graceful topography here. Well, the highest point in this immediate neighborhood was Rose Hill, which was located where the Candler Park apartments are now at the corner of Candler Park Drive and McClendon, where Lorraine's condo is. The highest point was 1,050 feet. And before the apartments were there were two very large white-owned homes, one by the Miller family of the Miller bookstores, which was a local bookstore chain, and the other of the Thrower family. So there were these two big homes high up, and the Millers had lush rose gardens at the top of that hill. That was the highest point in the neighborhood. So Rose Hill became the name. And typically, if African Americans were allowed to purchase land, it was usually the lowlands, the more challenging topographies, the flood-prone areas, and each of the sites that we have mentioned had those features. And the adjacent water sources were also a source of autonomy for those black enclaves, because they did have a source of water, which they were in control of rather than, the powers that be. So they were mixed blessings, and as the Rose Hill community and the Hooper Street community and the other black families were able to make the most of the assets and their creativity and skills and intelligence, and actually thrived and loved living in this neighborhood, and educating their children and learning to read the elders through the church. They really had this resilience and capacity to be and remain humane and work with what they had. Yes. Yeah, 22. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, they were. Yes, and these were properties that were black-owned property. Joe and Emma Hill, who were members of Antioch, sold just the single lot of land to Antioch to build the stone church out of stone, so their sanctuary would not be burned down again, as the sanctuary over on Oakdale, before it was called Oakdale, it was Whiteford North, was burned. And that land over on Oakdale was sold to it for $1 by their African-American pastor who bought 5 acres over there, and that was in 1877. So, during Reconstruction and before the full tilt Jim Crow at the end of the 1800s, there were black families who were able to purchase land, and that happened. And in all of the deeds, and we have a number of them, of these black purchases of land in the neighborhood, they were all for cash. They were all for cash. So they were, solidly owned until Jim Crow really accelerated, and so many of the homes and properties came under mortgages that changed hands so many times. I mean, the complexity of those times was partly, I think, camouflage for the powers that be to manipulate things the way they wanted. But families kept finding ways to work with that until they couldn't. Okay. Okay. So please pick up a flyer to help keep the activities straight in your mind, or two. There's the article and the flyer. Oh, and I want to thank the First E Board, who have underwritten new printings of the walking tour maps. So we have those on the literature shelf, and new printings of the history mystery of the Old Stone Church. So please help yourself to those as well. We really are thankful that the board has stepped up to support this project in so many ways over the years and again now. So thank you, folks. Please check out the model.